Yes, hello. Hello, everyone, and thanks for the invitation. Yes, so I'm going to talk about some perspective about space investing, and I hope, yeah, it's working. So yes, I'm the chairman of IBAN Space. So first, some words about IBAN. IBAN is the European Business Angel Network. We are really at the heart of the space ecosystem in Europe. So we connect and support business angels, of course, and early stage investors, but also the entrepreneurs and the corporates that are active not only around space, but around, let's say, any technology startups. But IBAN Space is clearly a branch which is related to the space. So IBAN connects incubators, accelerators, so different business angel networks, also the Chamber of Commerce, etc. So IBAN Space, yeah, as said, is a kind of subgroup of IBAN. And among IBAN Space, we have different members of our executive committees that are representing really the key players in the space ecosystem in Europe. So we have people from Seraphim Capital, which is one of the very first funds specialized in space. We have also representative from UK Space Tech Angels or Luxembourg Space Tech Angels, and also representative from ESA. And so far, since the creation in 2016, IBAN Space has invested about 30 million euros. So what is the situation, let's say, of the economy? I will not, let's say, tell something very new by saying that, of course, the world entered into a recession because of the COVID crisis. But what is the situation about space? I think most economies and most sectors have been impacted. But what is the situation regarding space? Actually, when we look at space, over the last years, what we can see is that space is quite resilient. And one main reason of this is, as I will just explain in a few minutes, is that space economy is highly depending still now about the public sector. So what we see actually is that space is quite resilient, and the COVID has not much affected the space sector. And we have seen, and I will show you in a few minutes, that a huge amount of money has been invested into the space sector. So when we see on this infographic, what we can see is that about 25% of the investment going into the space is coming from public sector. So it's probably one of the industrial sector which is the most depending about the public sector and about national agencies like NASA, ESA, etc. And that's a way, I mean, for this economy, for the space sector, to survive and to face difficulties even during troubled times like we have now with the COVID. So some figures that comes from some studies from Seraphim. So just in 2020, 7.7 billion has been invested in the space sector. And just in the last quarter of 2020, there was $2.6 billion that was just invested. So we see that it's in a period of recession, it's quite a significant amount of money that has been invested by private investors into the space sector. When we look at the sectors where investors put their money, we see that a big part is in the launchers and satellites, satellite constellations, but also data and downlinks. So what we call in the space industry the downstream. So everything which is using space data to build applications, which can be a maritime application for fishery, application for agriculture, or for logistics, or for financial services, etc. And there is less, I would say, for everything which is hardware or space exploration. So we can see again on this graph, it's a bit the same but represented differently. So you can see just what I just explained. I think this one is probably more interesting because which countries are invested mostly in the space sector, and we see that, of course, US is still the dominant player in the space, followed by Europe. And I think Europe is very dynamic when we are talking about the space sector. The last ESA budget is the biggest one ever. And I think we will see more and more private initiative and private venture capital funds created specifically for the space sector. After North America and Europe, there is Asia, of course, with China, Japan, which are quite active in the space sector. So now, what are the sectors where the money has been fueled? I think the COVID probably changed a little bit the focus on the different investments. And what we have seen is that there has been a lot of interest about healthcare and telemedicine. So all the remote services for caring people or for telemedicine, we have seen a significant amount of money going into that kind of applications. And these applications, mainly, they use either communication satellites. In some instances, it can also use some navigation services, but it's mostly what has been used for this kind of application. Another sector or applications where we have seen a lot also of investments, and also due to the COVID, is e-learning, because we know that not all students could go back to school. So there has been a massive amount of investment in the innovative e-learning solution, and also in some specific application for home working. This also has been a quite huge focus this last year because of the COVID crisis. Now, a big part of the investment is going, as I said, in data analytics and application of either communication data, navigation data, or Earth observation data. Probably some of you know that in Europe we have the Copernicus constellation, and it's free data coming from Europe. And there are a lot of entrepreneurs today that are using this data to build amazing solutions. What are these solutions? It's to protect, for example, the forest. It can be to preserve rivers, ocean, or simply to have a better understanding of our environment, and to sometimes prevent some disaster. One big problem on Earth is also the food supply, and there has been more and more applications using space data for securing world's food supply. A big problem today is because there are more and more constellation of satellites and microsatellites, there are more and more risk of orbital collisions and debris. So there are more and more companies active in building applications that can really map what is the different, let's say, satellites, and how to prevent somehow some orbital collisions. The difficulty of this kind of business model is to monetize them. So there are not today a very successful business model around this. It should be paid probably by the satellite operators, but most of them, they are probably not ready to pay for that. And then what we see also, it's a lot of application around high resolution and hyperspectral imaging. And this is very interesting because, for example, for agriculture and crops, etc., thanks to hyperspectral imaging, you can really monitor at a very accurate level. And this is very interesting to have some high value applications. And the direct things that I see is, for example, agriculture or maritime also, for example, in the terms of fishery tracking, for example, to have to determine the best spot for some fishermen, etc. This has been quite also abundantly used. Yeah, my clicker is not working. So as I said, a lot of money also went into launchers. As probably most of you know, SpaceX is disrupted this market. It was very expensive to launch something. Now it's still expensive, but with SpaceX, they provide, let's say, big saving for different satellite operators or the companies that have payloads to be launched into space. So this was the availability of more launchers and more affordable launchers is one of the events that that contributed to this rise of what is called the new space. So a lot of money is fueled towards launchers and satellite constellations. I think I had some preview. No, okay, sorry. Yeah, and last but not least, we have not to underestimate, of course, the space exploration. So there are many projects today to go back on the moon and to go back on Mars. We have seen on Mars with Perseverance. On the moon, there are many projects either on the US side or on the European side to go back, and even on the like Chinese to go back, or UAE with Mars to go back to the moon. What is very interesting, for example, I'm based in Luxembourg, is the initiative of the Luxembourgish government with what they call Space Resources.lu initiative, which is really to try to help a lot of companies that can really provide the value chain of a future moon economy. So today, what we can imagine on the moon, maybe in the next 10 years, is to have companies that will dig the surface of the moon to extract water and metals. Some companies that will use this water and metals to create habitats, to create energy, and to use these surface resources to somehow supply everything which is needed to build this moon base. And now there are a lot of these companies that are these players that are joining their forces around different alliances, etc. So there is a kind of new gold rush to the moon, and this could happen in the next 10 years. Mars, yeah, we know that Elon Musk is dreaming about putting humans on Mars. I do think that this will happen probably a bit later than the moon, but the moon probably in the next 10 years we will see real achievements for the moon. So it's very exciting. So, but all these initiatives today are highly funded by a public initiative. We see some private investors going in that space, but it's still marginal. So as soon as there will be the first pioneers there showing some concrete results, etc., I can imagine that more private investors will invest into that. And we can really compare this as the gold rush, you know, in California. We will see that as soon as there is some initial basic infrastructure that will be built, we will see probably many more private investment coming there. So that's a bit in a nutshell what I wanted to say. So my summary, I would say, is My summary, I would say, is that there is more and more, the space economy is resilient. There are more and more money which is invested from private investor in the space sector. And mostly it's everything which is about application, launcher, and satellite constellation. And space exploration, probably in the coming years, but today it's more marginal. So thank you very much. And if you want to stay in touch with me, feel free to contact me. Thank you very much for listening. I don't know if there are some questions, but I will be happy to answer some questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fabrice. Yes, we have a couple of questions. And the question is, could you describe what is advantage of Europe if we are comparing it with other regions in the space race? That would be the question, like a bit uplifting ourselves in the European region.
Yeah, I think Europe has a long, let's say, history in terms of research. So we have a very nice researcher, and so we have not to be shy about what we do in Europe. There are a lot of success stories in Europe. If I take a company like ICE in Finland, they are really booming in terms of SAR imagery. We have Spire, which is between the US and Luxembourg, that announced recently a kind of IPO, a SPAC. And they have a small satellite the size of a bottle of champagne, and they provide data for maritime sector, aviation sector, etc. So there are a lot of success stories in Europe. Of course, US, because you know the size of the US and the size of the NASA budget has fueled a lot of very successful companies too. But in Europe, we see a lot of success stories. So I think we have all the competencies. ESA is very supportive, and we will see more and more successes in the years to come.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fabrice, for your time. And definitely, if someone wants to get in touch with Fabrice, we encourage to do that. Thank you.